Gosh, I'm so tired. I think you need some coffee. Okay, thanks. Wow, I'm awake! Does this happen to you too? You just can't do anything without your coffee in the morning? Coffee makes you fit and awake. It used to have a pretty bad image. Nowadays, it turns out that coffee can even be good for your health. In this video, I will talk about what's in coffee, how coffee makes us more awake. I will answer the question if coffee increases the risk of cancer and how much coffee we should drink at most per day. So, what is caffeine? More than 1,000 ingredients of coffee have now been identified. Caffeine is not only the best known, but also the most effective.
How many cups have you had this morning?
None.
Plus?
5, but yours is better.
Chemically, caffeine belongs to the alkaloids and is pharmacologically and medically classified as a drug. It has a stimulating effect and is thus a legal stimulant that can increase your concentration and your physical performance. People have been drinking drinks with caffeine for centuries. It is not only a natural component in coffee beans, but also in cocoa beans. It is found in tea leaves, guarana berries, and cola nuts. And in addition, caffeine is sometimes added artificially to medicines, cosmetic products, and food. For example, ice cream, sweets, drinks. So, how does caffeine work? It takes about 15 to 30 minutes for caffeine to take effect on the body. From the stomach and small intestine, it enters the blood, spreads throughout the body, and also ends up in the brain. This is because caffeine passes through the so-called blood-brain barrier. Caffeine is then broken down in the liver after a few hours and then excreted from the body via the kidneys. So what happens in detail with caffeine in the body? So the more energy we use up in general, the more of a substance called adenosine we produce, which accumulates in our brain. Our brain has so-called adenosine receptors to which the adenosine docks and thus tells our brain, "Hi, I'm adenosine, and now you're getting very, very tired." Caffeine is chemically very similar to adenosine and can therefore fool the adenosine receptors and dock onto them itself. So the receptors are blocked and our brain no longer notices that we are tired and so feel more awake. This effect can last for 1 to 2 hours. Caffeine also stimulates the release of stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol, which increase our pulse and blood pressure. The consequence? The body becomes more alert and efficient. We can concentrate better and feel fitter. What happens during caffeine withdrawal? Caffeine withdrawal can cause typical withdrawal symptoms. Coffee. 12 to 24 hours after the last cup of coffee, the body reacts most strongly with fatigue or headaches. Concentration becomes more difficult and you have less energy. The reason? There are suddenly a lot of free receptors for adenosine. After 1 to 2 days, the body has recovered from coffee withdrawal. Caffeine can be addictive, but not nearly as much as alcohol, nicotine, or hard drugs. It can make sense to give up coffee now and then. The body reacts to regular caffeine intake and even produces more adenosine receptors. This means that the more caffeine we consume regularly, the less effective it is. Or to put it the other way around, those who drink coffee less often benefit more from the wake-up effect than those who drink it constantly. So, what's in coffee? Not all of the ingredients have been worked out to date, but more than 1,000 ingredients are now known. Caffeine may be the most studied, but it is also not the only one that has an effect. There are also various vitamins in coffee, for example, but also minerals, calcium, potassium, magnesium, and phosphorus. Does coffee increase the risk of cancer? Until 2016, the WHO classified coffee as possibly carcinogenic. This is because earlier studies concluded that there could be a link between coffee consumption and bladder cancer. However, after a working group of the International Agency for Research on Cancer had evaluated more than 1,000 nutritional and cancer studies, it gave the all clear on this point. Among other things, earlier studies had one major shortcoming. They did not strictly separate coffee and tobacco consumption. That is why the working group came to the conclusion that there is no sufficient evidence that the general consumption of coffee leads to cancer. On the contrary, today coffee is even attributed a slight protection against cancer. The Cancer Information Service of the German Cancer Research Center points out that coffee may offer weak protection against prostate cancer, but also against liver cancer, kidney cancer, skin cancer, and colon cancer. Is hot coffee more dangerous? Even if the all clear is given in principle regarding coffee and the risk of cancer, there seems to be an exception to one detail. In one meta-analysis, the International Agency for Research on Cancer actually identified an increased risk of cancer at a high drinking temperature. Ow! Specifically, according to the scientists, drinking coffee at a temperature of 65 degrees Celsius or higher increases the risk of developing cancer of the esophagus. This is because hot coffee is considered a trigger for cells to be damaged. This risk applies not only to coffee but to all very hot drinks and foods. Do coffee drinkers actually live longer? Statisticians at Imperial College in London analyzed the health data of more than 500,000 people from 10 European countries after long-term observation and came to the conclusion coffee drinking was associated to living longer. Be careful though, it is unclear whether it is actually coffee that helps people live longer, because a causal relationship cannot automatically be drawn from a statistical accumulation. Always a problem in science. It is possible that people who already had a higher risk of disease drank less coffee in general. So how much coffee is actually okay? Even though coffee is good for many people, medically and pharmacologically, caffeine is a drug. The European Food Safety Authority carried out a risk assessment for caffeine in 2015. The result? A single dose of 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight was said to be harmless. This means that a woman weighing 60 kilograms could consume 180 milligrams of caffeine as a single dose. However, a cup of coffee is far from that. Depending on the strength, it contains between 30 and 100 milligrams of caffeine. According to the EFSA, caffeine should generally not exceed 400 milligrams throughout the day. That corresponds to about 4.5 cups of coffee. Since the average person in the UK drinks 2 cups of coffee a day, I don't see a problem there. For cardiologists, 3 to 5 cups a day are okay. This could reduce the risk of developing cardiovascular diseases, so for example, stroke or heart attack. Does coffee change the effect of medicines? Coffee can be a problem when you drink it at the same time you take certain medicines. Caffeine reduces active substances that have a calming effect and increases active substances with a stimulating effect. This means that caffeine can both lessen the effect of a medicine or act as a booster. This applies not only to the effect of medicine, but also its side effects. These can also be intensified by caffeine. Painkillers such as ibuprofen or paracetamol, for example, are intensified by caffeine. What I found interesting is that the medicine I take against migraines has also added caffeine in it. Can you drink coffee at the wrong time? If coffee is drunk with or after a meal, it inhibits iron absorption. The iron ions do not enter our bloodstream via the stomach, but are instead bound by certain substances in the coffee, enter the intestines, and are excreted. If we drink coffee in the evening, it can upset our biological clock and make us come to bed too late. But there are also exceptions, because it varies from person to person how quickly caffeine is broken down. Fun fact, I know someone who needs an espresso every night before going to bed. Thank you so much for watching my video today. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. And maybe meet a friend and have a cup of coffee together, and maybe you can tell him or her about the stuff you learned in my video. It would be great if you could subscribe to my channel, leave me a thumbs up, and if you want, leave me a comment. Thank you, bye bye, and stay curious.